Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Ram Rama Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Enam Kanvandam Maravindadalaya Taksham Bhagavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandar Ago Vigamaniya Nishesha Shobham. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham
রাধা শ্যাম সুন্দর রাধা শ্যাম সুন্দর রাধে। জয় কৃষ্ণ বলরাম কৃষ্ণ বলরাম কৃষ্ণ বলরাম জয় কৃষ্ণ বলরাম। জয় গৌরনিতাই 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 গৌরনিতাই। जय श्रील प्रभुपाद महाराज की जय। जय प्रभुपदा 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 जय प्रभुपदा। श्री गुरु चा रहना पधुमा हे वाला भा कदी शदमा। जय श्रील प्रभुपाद महाराज की जय। केवल भंडमये सावधान माते भंडमये सावधान माते। जागर प्रसादे भाई हे बाबा तो रियाया। यार प्रसादे भाई हे बाबा तो रियाया। जय श्री बाबा। कृष्ण प्राप्ति होई जा होइते कृष्ण प्राप्ति होई जागा होइते। Follow him. गुरु मुगा पद्मा वाक्या चिते ते को रिया है क्या। आरनखो रियो मने आशा Aranako diyo mone asha. Shri Guru Charane Arati Eshevu Tomagati Ja Prasade Puri Charva Asha. Ja Prasade Pure Sarva Asha. Sakudana Tila Janma Janma Prabhu Che Chakudan Tilaje Janma Janma Prabhu Che Dibangarida Prakashita Prema Bhakti Ahavati Avidya Vinashayati Prema Bhakti Ahavati Avidya Vinashayati Vedanga Yahagara Rido Vedanga Yahagarito Shri Guru Karna Sindhu Adamadhanara Bandhu Lokhana Lokhera Jivana Lokhanath Lokera Jivana Aha Prabhu Kara Daya Kapada Chaya ये बजा कुछ त्रिभुवना शीला प्रभुपाद पतित पवना आहा प्रभु कर दया दिया बर पदा छया Pavana Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti Namaste सरस्वती देवीं गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्वशेषा शून्यवादी पश्चाते चितदारुणी Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivachari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivachari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Go Hari Bol Bhakta Vrinda Vajagor Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Radhe Shyam Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Balaram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hari Hari. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jai Jai Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mohan. Hari, Hari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gauranga, Joy Nitai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Hari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Bolo bolo, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Tat Sat. Dhanyavad.
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन बल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन बल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारि यमुनातीरावनचारि जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज विहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकचार्यष्टोदरक से श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रील भय चरणारविंद भक्तिवेदांत गोस्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की इस्कॉन विपुट संस्थापक आचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्यष्टोदरक से श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर प्रभुपाद की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की ताय गौर प्रेमानंदे all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshur-unmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschata Deshtarane Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, Chapter entitled Brahma's Prayers to Lord Krishna, Text 3. Jnane prayasamudapasya namanta eva Jivanti sanmukharitam bhavadiya vartam Sthane sthita shruti gatam tanuvan manobhed Ye prayasho jita ajita apitais trilokyam Jnane prayasamudapasya namanta eva Jivanti sanmukharitam bhavadiya vartam Sthane sthita shruti gatam tanuvan manobhir Ye prayasho jita ajita apitais trilokyam. Translation. Those who, even while remaining situated in their established social positions, throw away the process of speculative knowledge and with their body, words and mind, offer all respects to descriptions of your personality and activities, dedicating their life to these narrations which are vibrated by you personally and by your pure devotees, certainly conquer your lordship, although you are otherwise unconquerable by anyone within the three worlds. Purport. Here the word udapasya clearly indicates that one should not even slightly endeavor to understand the absolute truth by the process of mental speculation, for it invariably carries one to an imperfect, impersonal understanding of God. The word jivanti indicates that the devotee who always hears about Lord Krishna will go back home, back to Godhead, even if he can do nothing except maintain his existence and hear topics concerning the Lord. Srila explained the words Tanuvan Manobhir by the body, words, and mind in three ways. In reference to these devotees, through their body, words, and mind, they are able to conquer Lord Krishna. Thus, his feet with their hands call him to come with the words and attain his direct audience within their mind simply by thinking about him. In the case of non-devotee, the word Tanuvan Manobhir referred to the word Ajita, unconquered, indicate that those not engaged in the loving service of Lord Krishna cannot conquer the absolute truth by their bodily strength, verbal expertise, or mental power. Despite all their endeavors, the ultimate truth remains beyond their reach. In reference to the word Jitah, conquered, the word Tanuvan Manobhir indicates that the pure devotees of Lord Krishna conquer his body, words, and mind. Lord Krishna's body is conquered because he always remains by the side of his pure devotees. Lord Krishna's words are conquered because he always chants the glories of his devotees. Lord Krishna's mind is conquered because he always thinks about his loving devotees. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has explained the words Tanuvan Manobhir in regard to the word Namantah, offering obeisances. He explains that devotees can take full advantage of the transcendental topics of the Lord by offering all respects to these topics with their body, words, and mind. One should engage his body by touching the ground with his hand and head while offering obeisances to the topics of the Lord. One should engage his words by praising transcendental literature such as the Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, as well as devotees who are preaching such literature. And one should engage his mind by feeling great reverence and pleasure while hearing the transcendental topics of the Lord. In this way, a sincere devotee who has acquired even a small amount of transcendental knowledge about Lord Krishna can conquer him and thus go back home, back to Godhead, for eternal life at the Lord's side. Hare Krishna. So we have a very short class today, and this particular verse is a very beautiful historical verse, often referred to by our acharyas as the verse which Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his conversation with Ramananda Rai acknowledged as indicating the complete process of Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojan being described in this verse. And then in that conversation he said, Eho hoy, this is fine to Ramananda Rai. So as the word Jitah refers to conquered. So anyway, I was going to speak about with the reference to Gita Jayanti yesterday, because yesterday we had the Gita Jayanti, and what is significant about Krishna speaking the Gita is he could only do that because he was conquered by Arjuna's love. And Krishna very specifically mentions that I am speaking this knowledge to you. And Shripad Ramanujacharya in his glorification he explains Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetreka Panaye Jnana Mudraya Gitaya Gitamrita Duhe Namah. Jnana Mudraya Prapanna Parijataya. For Krishna, Totra Vetreka Panaye. Krishna, who is conquered by his surrendered devotees and is sitting there on the chariot like a blooming parijata, beautiful Krishna is reciprocating with his surrendered devotee Arjuna by holding the Totra and Vetra, which is the lagam, the reins of the chariot, and also the stick. That means he is taking the position of becoming a humble servant of Arjuna. Totra Vetra Ekapane. In one hand, Krishna is holding the stick and the reins, indicating service. And Jnanamudraya Krishnaya. So the cover of the Gita has the famous picture of Krishna holding his other hand in the mood of giving knowledge. So Krishna is giving knowledge to Arjuna, but indicating that the message of the Gita is not just knowledge for the sake of knowledge, but knowledge which will ignite pure devotional service unto the Supreme Lord. Including the very person who speaks the Gita is in the mood of serving as soon as the Gita is over. As soon as the Gita is spoken, Krishna begins his seva to Arjun by becoming his chariot driver. Gitamrita Duhe Namaha. That personality who ultimately milked the nectar of Bhagavad-Gita, Lord Krishna, to that personality I offer my respectful obeisances. So therefore, from this beautiful picture of Krishna and Arjuna sitting on the chariot, we have an excellent example of what this verse is describing. Jnane prayasam udapasya. Because the first chapter saw Arjuna indulging in a lot of mental speculation. He was in a decision-making dilemma. Many choices, he did not know which one to choose. He did not know what to do. And therefore, ultimately, Krishna spoke the Bhagavad-Gita so that Arjuna could follow what he is trying to share. Jnane prayasam udapasya. So when one stops speculation and begins namanta and offers obeisances and surrenders and decides to hear the conclusion from the Vaishnavas, Jivanti san mukharitam, from those devotees whose very life is hearing and speaking Krishna Katha, Bhavadiya Vartaha, and rather hear Krishna's messages from the devotees. So therefore, as long as Arjuna was in the mood to speak, he could not actually come to the right conclusion. He was confused. So therefore, from that cover of the Bhagavad-Gita, we can learn various lessons just by seeing Krishna and Arjuna together on that chariot. First is Ananyata, which is how becomes conquered by his devotees, one-pointed Namanta eva, jitah, he becomes conquered. So when Krishna offered to both Duryodhan and Arjuna, Duryodhan immediately picked up Krishna's army, whereas Arjuna, he chose Krishna. So therefore, Ananya means Arjuna did not want anyone or anything else apart from Krishna. So Krishna becomes conquered by such exclusive devotion. Ananya chetaha satatam yomam smarati nityashaha. So that's a very, very important principle, that we approach Krishna consciousness with the perspective of simply serving Krishna exclusively, not having any other thought in mind, and especially no other thought of personal enjoyment. Bhukta bhoga parityakta drishta dosha cha nityasha na ishwarasya ashubham dhatte swe mahimni stitasya cha. In the third canto it is described when the jiva comes to the conclusion that all efforts at enjoyment in this world, independent of Krishna's will, is ultimately a seed for misery and frustration. Bhukta bhoga parityakta, and he decides to give it up. Drishta dosha, seeing the fault in that. Seeing the fault in that enjoyment tendency. Seeing the fault in that so-called pleasure which accompanies that sense gratification enterprise. Somebody approached Prabhupada and asked the question, what is the purpose of this world? And Prabhupada said, enjoyment. That reporter started smiling. And Prabhupada said, not yours. Krishna's. Krishna's enjoyment. I was going in the local train in Mumbai, and there was a young, that was the time we just began working on the Govardhan Eco-Village, and I was meeting many sustainability experts. So I was just learning that, entire field for the first time, environmental protection and things like that. So my mind was quite active. So this youth right in front of me had a t-shirt, and on the t-shirt it said, save water. So I said, wow, he's looks like an environmentalist. Maybe he may have some, he's an activist for water, or he may have some expertise. Maybe I should connect with him. And then suddenly he got up and turned around, and behind it was written, drink beer. So I realized that, it was the wrong number. He was not an environmentalist. He just, So Krishna chose Arjuna, and when Mahaprabhu instructs Rup and Sanatan to go to Vrindavan, Prabhur Agyay Koila Sab Shastra Bichar Brajere Nigud Bhakti Korila Prachar. Mahaprabhu gave them instruction to settle in Vrindavan, so they followed that Sadachar, Prabhur Agyay Koila. Under that Shastra Vichar. So the Goswamis were also analyzing a lot of spiritual literatures. They were also swimming in Gyan. But that Gyan is not mental speculation, because they were following instruction of Mahaprabhu. Prabhur Agyay Koila. So when first there is Sadachar, then there is Vichar. Then one gets empowered for Prachar. Brajera Niguda Bhakti Korila Prachar. So Ananyata is the first principle we learn from Krishna and Arjuna's relationship. Second is Bhakta Vatsalyata. Krishna becomes conquered by his devotees' love to such an extent that he becomes the devotee's servant. Right? And so, sa evayam maya tedya yoga prokta puratana bhakto sime sakhacha iti. So when when Krishna became the chariot driver, the way directions are given to the chariot driver from behind by the warrior it's such a chaos in the battlefield that the driver cannot be given any instruction verbally, but many times by the foot. And so that is the kind of service which Krishna accepted, serving Arjuna very menially. So he became Arjuna's driver. So, when we see the cover of Bhagavad-Gita, we see Krishna sitting right there. To recognize many times is the kind of menial service which Krishna was willing to perform just for the pleasure of his devotee Arjuna. So therefore, Krishna is demonstrating by his own example that service would require a lot of tolerance. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Tomara sevaya dukha hoye yata seto parama sukha seva sukha dukha parama sampada nashaye avidya dukha. My dear Lord, while engaging in your devotional service, the dukkha which I experience is actually the cause of greatest sukha. Devotees in devotional service, and do not expect people to immediately take to Krishna consciousness automatically, because it's a transformation. One devotee was pasting, some stamps on an envelope, and he was using his saliva. A small katori of water, and he was using that. Prabhupada went away, and then he almost finished all the stamps on the envelope, and there was only one stamp remaining, and the water in the bowl got over. So he started thinking, what should I do? The basin is in the other room. To get up, go, fill it up just for one stamp. I already know my old technique. And then he looked around and nobody was there. So that last stamp he just took and put it on his tongue. The door opened, Prabhupada was standing there. And Prabhupada said, I told you not to do this. He said, I never knew you were going to come. So, the transformation of habits is one of the most challenging and difficult things. And so Krishna himself is giving an example that I am becoming a servant, and this is how you become a servant. And that's why we find that, Krishna took that position. Third, Krishna says to Arjuna, idam tute guhyatamam pravakshyami anusuyave. I am giving this knowledge to you, Arjuna, because you are non-envious. So therefore, not just Arjuna was non-envious, but also the other Pandavas were also non-envious. That's why Krishna loved the Pandavas so much. Because Yudhishthira did not come to Krishna and object. Why you become Yudhishthira's Arati? Or he did not, negotiate. 3 days Arjuna's chariot, 3 days my chariot, 3 days Bhima chariot. So like that, let us make a schedule. So Krishna decided, I will be Arjuna's chariot driver, and all the other Pandavas, they accepted this. So therefore, to see other devotees being blessed by the Lord, and when that gives us happiness, that makes Krishna really happy. And therefore, Vaishnavera gunagrahi na dekhai dosh, काय मने वाक्य करे Vaishnava santosh. So, to see the good qualities in devotees and please them, that's actually the essence of Krishna consciousness. And there is no need to actually compare with the devotees. There is no need to imitate the devotees. One needs to only serve the devotees. And therefore, Gaurangera Sangi Gone Nitya Siddha Kori Mane Se Jaya Brajendra Shutapash. So, just by accepting Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, just by accepting devotees as associates of Lord Chaitanya, recognizing their service and becoming blissful on seeing their service, one to go to the spiritual world. So therefore, in the material world, there is great anxiety because each person wants to imitate someone else, right? But the Pandavas knew that if Krishna blesses Arjuna, then by Krishna's grace upon Arjuna, automatically that grace will overflow upon all of us. And all we need to do is to support Arjuna, is to serve Arjuna. And that's the mood of the Vaishnav Samudaya. That's the mood of the Vaishnav association, that we don't want to become like someone. We just serve and assist and support. And then one becomes free from any anxiety. We had a Vrindavan Yatra many years ago. And in Fogala Ashram, Radhanath Maharaj was giving lecture, and he was, as part of the lecture, sometimes he makes sound of different animals. So he was making the sound of monkeys and cow and this and that. So just after that, a few months later, I was doing a program in some village in Maharashtra. So I thought, okay, our regular devotees are not here. This is a good forum for me to experiment, making some sounds like that. So I was giving a lecture on Gocharan Leela of Krishna taking care of the cows. And I also made the sound of the cows. I thought I did a good job. But after the lecture, one guy came to me and said, "Whose sounds was that? Which animal sound?" So I said, "Arey, what kind of question you are asking?" It was Gocharan Leela. It was the sound of the cows. He said it did not sound like cows at all. I said, "They are cows from Mumbai." So you couldn't recognize. So he got confused and I just left. And then I realized that you don't have to become someone. You don't have to try to imitate someone. Whatever has been given, we try to follow. And we are celebrating the glories of Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu today. And I did not have much interaction with him, but just by seeing the steadiness of his devotional service, this is a quality which absolutely attracts me. And by seeing this verse and the purport of this verse, he embodied this to the core, that simply satisfied in serving. Whatever Krishna has given me, let me utilize in serving and pleasing Krishna and his devotees. That is the essence of living life in the association of Vaishnavas. And let us now participate in glorifying Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Paraya Krishna Krishna Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Nami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Putra. There are many speakers today. I'll just take 2 minutes. Each year, how many years has it been now? 12?
It was in 2007.
2007. Now it's 21. 14 years. Okay. Bibhu Chaitanya came to Vrindavan in 1976. He had been a grihasta in Bengal. He was so far as I was told, he used to run a kirana dukan, but he was also, during his grihasta life, a sankirtan singer. He was the second singer in his mandala. So he came here, renouncing his family life, and by chance Bhakti-Charu was here, Bhakti-Charu Swami. Bhakti-Charu Swami brought him in to meet Srila Prabhupada, and he gave Prabhupada, at that time, a 1 rupee coin, which is symbolic of complete surrender, anyata, like Gauranga Prabhu is saying. 1 rupee means, I give my whole life to you. Prabhupada accepted him and immediately engaged him in cooking here, even though, because we were very short of devotees, not like now. We had so few devotees that make the chapatis for the deities. And he immediately put Bibhu Chaitanya into the kitchen, and until the time that he was initiated, he was cooking every day for their lordships. He ran out, took initiation, then ran right back. So he served like that for, I think, 12 years as the full-time. Prabhupada wanted 1 cook and 3 pujaris at that time, 1 for each altar and 1 cook. So he cooked practically all the offerings. Whatever he didn't cook, he would oversee and make sure that it was done perfectly. And then when he became physically incapable of doing so much, how many people? 6 people took his place. So then he transferred over to the Charanamrita department. He was serving out Charanamrita to the devotees. And gradually, his strength and his ability to physically serve depleted, and he had to retire to his room. He would still attend the programs as much as possible. And then we saw gradually how he prepared to go back to Sri Krishna by encouraging the devotees, by taking darshan of the devotees, and finally he left this world, 2007. And at that time, we didn't have many samadhis here, so the devotees, out of great love and affection for him, they created the samadhi area and they put him there in samadhi form. So each year we get to glorify Bibhu Chaitanya, and more devotees come forward. This year I just wanted to say 3 things, because I always try to say something new each year. One is, I realized that just like Krishna has his insignias, so I would say that Bibhu Chaitanya's insignia was a spoon. Because first he started out in his shop handing out all of the goods to everyone. Then when he came here and retired to serve, I used to think probably all of the things that he sold, now he's going to be offering to Krishna. It'll take that many years for him to make up for what he did in his grihasta life. So, and also, he always had a spoon in his hand in the kitchen. And then when he had to retire from the kitchen service, he had a spoon in his hand, very lovingly serving the devotees Charanamrita. He would hold our hands, and with that spoon, give us the Charanamrita. And then amazingly, when he had to retire to room number 5, when we would bring devotees to see him, he had 2 big bodhis. One had spoons in them, and the other had glasses, stainless steel glasses. And he would get everyone a spoon, a glass, and some prasadam that he had made. So I think of Bibhu Chaitanya with a spoon in his hand. The other is, I feel that just like we have here the changing bodies diorama, I feel that we really need to make a diorama of a devotee's life. Because devotees, yes, we go through the same 6 changes, but our 6 changes are glorious. And at the end, instead of being miserable, we can see the devotee going back to Godhead. So with that, we'll let other devotees speak. Another few things I just want to share, that now in the process of growing old here in Vrindavan, not being able to do as much as we would like to do anymore, just like we saw in the case of Vibhu Chaitanya, there's some very poignant lessons that I learned from Vibhu Chaitanya. One is that, and this Prabhupada also, he used to say again and again, don't take me to the hospital. And the other devotees who would come to visit Prabhupada from Gaudiya Math, they would say, yes, such and such, he was in the hospital the last 15 days of his life unconscious, with tubes and everything like that. They were giving examples of other godbrothers and how they left their body. So Prabhupada was adamant, don't take me to the hospital. The only medicine is Harinam. I just want to be in the association of the devotees. You're all pure devotees, and he was speaking to his disciples, you're all pure devotees because you've all taken complete shelter of Krishna. So each one of us, we know we have to go through it. We have to prepare for leaving this body. We have to remember, just like the example of Vibhu Chaitanya, although he was so bent over he couldn't even walk anymore, he wouldn't allow for all types of medical intervention to give him a few more days, a few more years in this life. He simply stayed in the association of devotees here, and at the time when he was going to leave his body, all the devotees came and very gloriously watched him leave his body while chanting Hare Krishna. But during the time of his service, when there were medical emergencies, twice he had to get operation, and at that time, just to continue his service, he underwent the operations. So in the face of service, when we have to continue our service and it's an emergency, then we can take medical assistance. But when it comes to the time of leaving the body, we should be in the association of devotees. We should not let ourselves succumb to just a few more days, let me finish my plans, whatever it is. We should take shelter of the holy name and the association of devotees. Hare Krishna.
Also, our Bhuvaneshwar the same way.
Yes.
He refused to go. He just wanted to stay here in Vrindavan and meditate on Krishna Balaram.
Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha. His Grace Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu Ki. So Devi Shakti Mataji, she gave the essence in a few words, but at the same time, we have the opportunity to say a few words, and we had the good fortune of having a lot of association with him. When I came here to Vrindavan 1980, so I had the opportunity to serve in washing the deities' plates, the bhoga plates. And so Vibhu Chaitanya was there in the kitchen. He was supervising everything in the kitchen, and very nicely everything was always organized. And the helpers, they were doing exactly how he wanted, and he instructed them in this way, and he was very strong and strict. But not only there, even in Pujari room, or even in regards to the Mahaprasadam, so he had something to say also. Of course, there was one Mataji there, Purnima Mataji, from South India, who was taking care of the Mahaprasad selling, but he also made sure that the Mahaprasadam was going to those who are helping in the kitchen, and even those who are cleaning the plates and the pujaris, so that everyone got a share of the Mahaprasadam, which he prepared very lovingly. And then only that, but then sometimes you see pujaris, they get Mahaprasad and they may keep, and most of the time, yeah. And they are a little hesitant to give to others, but he also was distributing Mahaprasadam to everyone. He called many times the devotees, come, and then he was giving Mahaprasadam. So his preparations were very wonderful, and I mean, especially I liked his halwa, and he had one dry sweet, burfi, milk burfi. And one time he made a special preparation, and it was really tasty. And my wife, she's a good cook also, she was asking him, so can you please tell me how you made it? And he was saying, you need bhakti, only bhakti required. He didn't give the recipe, but he just said you need bhakti. And she said, okay, I don't have that, so I wait. And such a wonderful devotee, sweet and so dedicated. And even at one point, so he was making all the offerings practically, and he had 1 or 2 devotees assisting him, and also with the cleaning, of course, in the kitchen and about some of the preparations. But at one point he decided, well, on Ekadashi, I cannot distribute to the devotees prasadam, and he was also thinking, well, for Prabhupada, so we should have Ekadashi prasad. So he started cooking Ekadashi prasadam. Besides the Rajbhog, the normal offering, he had 1 plate of Ekadashi prasad, which he offered to Prabhupada and for Bhaktisiddhanta also. And then he was distributing that Mahaprasad also. Till one time, some senior devotees were saying, well, this is not necessary to do that. And then they asked him to stop also. I was there and he was so disappointed. So even though he was so dedicated and such a sweet and wonderful devotee, so humble, and even we wanted to serve him sometimes. He had one devotee, Rup Sanatan, who is now a pujari here, a wonderful pujari, who was staying with him, serving him, and then he was cleaning, helping him cleaning, and he got initiated and he became a good cook also. Now he's a pujari, Rup Sanatan, so he was there serving him. Otherwise it was difficult to serve him. And I used to go to his room and then ask him, anything I can do for you? No, it's okay. And I wanted to sometimes ask some question. He was giving short reply and he was not even speaking so much generally. Although he was learned, and there's some poetry also. I think you have the poetry. He wrote some poetry. Vibhu Chaitanya, you have that? Or Madhavendu, one other devotee, Bengali devotee, so he had that poetry. So, but he was very reserved and very humble and for himself and just doing his seva to Prabhupada and to the deities. So, very wonderful devotee. And so, as Mataji explained, so he was doing for 12 years in the kitchen the seva, and then we needed 4 or 5 devotees to cover all the seva of cooking the different offerings and the different sweets. And just as he was doing his seva very nice in the kitchen, single-handedly, practically, of course Samastinson was there, similarly then he was doing alone also the serving of the Chanamrit. And now we have like 5-6 devotees who are doing in 2 hours, but he was doing himself. And before he was doing also, we had 2 or 3 devotees, and sometimes difficult to get somebody at this time to do the seva of Chanamrit seva. But then he was doing himself, morning till evening, alone, distributing Chanamrit to all the devotees. And so with a spoon and lovingly taking the hand of the devotees also. And then some devotees and the children especially who were not able to take in the hand, he was giving them a small cup. And then they were drinking. And even then the devotees, they like to have the cup and get some more mercy, more Chanamrit. And so one time, so even though one is dedicated and doing seva very nicely like he was doing, sometimes some difficulties are there. He had to face also in the kitchen, and then even sometimes, here also one time he put one fridge there where Tulsi Devi is. Because he was getting old, it was difficult to go in and out, and so you had the fridge there, he was keeping the Chanamrit there. But then after that I felt it's okay. I didn't have a big problem because he was so old and senior. But then some devotees, they complained, and then we had to put the fridge back, and he was a little disappointed. And then after some time, so he was not able to do the seva. And then, as Mataji explained, he was in the room, and he decorated the room very, very nicely. And actually, became his bhajan kutir. It was not just a living room, but it was a bhajan kutir. He had the deities' pictures, and every day in the evening, Rup Sanatan, the pujari, was taking some of the deities' garlands, and he was using that to decorate his altar there with the deities' pictures, and then every day he was doing a small puja, and then he was offering bhoga also there, and then, because he was always distributing prasadam also, always ready to serve the Vaishnavas, the other devotees. And so it was difficult to serve him, but one time he told me, he called me, many times he called me, and then had the opportunity to do a little seva. One time he told me, I need 300 rupees every month. I was thinking, what? But whatever you need, we give you. No, I need 300 rupees. Then I didn't say anything more, and I gave him 300 rupees every month. And then I saw what he did. He was buying some kinds of nuts and some paraphernalia, as Mataji was saying, because he wanted to distribute something to the devotees. So this cup and spoon, and whoever was coming here, he used to call the devotees, come, come. Or through one devotee, he used to call the devotee, because he could not himself walk. And then devotees used to come and see him, and then he was giving prasadam. So such a wonderful devotee. And so as Mataji said, and as we can see in the lives of the devotees who are dedicated, and then so up to the last moment, they are absorbed in the service, and then by Krishna's arrangement also, then so Krishna will arrange for their wonderful departure from this world. Yes, actually, as he was not able to even do his seva and bhajan in his room, then we could see that so it is time for him to leave. And actually very quickly his condition deteriorated, and the devotees used to come and do kirtan. Had to go for one program in Indore. Some devotees had invited me, and then he left on this auspicious day. Today on Dvadashi Tithi, just after Mokshada Ekadashi, so amidst the devotees chanting the holy names, and senior devotees were there when he left his world, Burijan Prabhu and others. So he had a glorious, wonderful, of course, from the culture also, born in Bengal, and we know Mahaprabhu has two kinds of devotees, the Gaudiya and the Oriya, those from Godadesh, from Bengal, and those from Orissa. So by nature, anyone who is born in Bengal, of course nowadays the many Bengalis who are eating fish and so on, and maybe Communist Party, but generally one who is born in Bengal, he has the opportunity to take up Krishna consciousness, and by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So from that point of view, so he was fortunate, and then he came here, and he was fortunate to, as Mataji said, immediately cooking for the deities, very intimate seva, assisting Srimati Radharani, who is cooking for Krishna. So he had that wonderful service which he did wonderful, and the other seva also. And then he left also in an exemplary way. His Grace Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Mother Vidya, thank you, Prabhu. Mother Vidya, you're here. Maharaj, if she comes, she can
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyayavacha patitanam pavanabhyo vaishnavabhyo namo namah. His Grace Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. I was serving here about over 20 years ago in the management and administration in Vrindavan. And before they could move Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, he was to room number 5, but He was in the ex-Gurukul building. So several times a week I used to visit him in his room. At that time he was kind of more indisposed in his physique, couldn't move much. Then he recovered, and then for the Charanamrita service and so forth. So one time when I walked in with a few of the brahmacharis who were with me, he was completely indisposed. He was lying on his bed. But as soon as he saw me, he practically got up. I don't know where he got the energy from. And then he sat on his bed, and devotees said, "No, don't do that." See, I can't speak Hindi, but he was speaking Hindi and Bengali with some devotees. So he came and he tried to touch my feet. It was very embarrassing actually for me, extremely embarrassing. So I asked him, "Why are you doing this?" He said, "No, you are Mahant, main Mahant of the temple." So what is this? So I was completely embarrassed. So I had to literally carry him and put him back on the bed. Yeah. But such was his humility. I was so embarrassed. He's senior to me in all respects, and very, very embarrassing moment for me. Actually one of the most embarrassing moments in my life. But it taught me how, and I was proud. Still maybe I'm proud and puffed up and so forth. So somehow he got a little bit better, and then he was walking around in Charanamrita service, and then one day I happened to walk into the Didi, the kitchen, the old kitchen, inside, yeah. And somehow he was doing some service there, So he didn't notice I was there. So some other devotees were with me, so I just opened the door slightly and I saw him like that. But he was actually cooking something, It's like his Siddha there, it's like his Swarup Siddhi, he's cooking. There's nothing, it's his eternal service like that. So then suddenly he went to one corner. I don't know, I may have maybe my health wasn't good, maybe I may have coughed or sneezed or something, and that attracted his attention. My health wasn't good, I remember that. So he turned around and he said, Prabhu, I was brahmachari. I said, Prabhu, ek minute. Very respectful. Yeah. So I don't know whether I meant to say this, but I'll say it. The two things in deity worship is cleanliness and punctuality. But there's one rodent. Rodent means a small. It's not a rat. It's like it's like a mouse. It's clean. People keep them as pets. It's like a type of mice. But this is not a regular mice, in Braj Mandala, they devotees, like that. So it was like a little high up, and he was like, okay. This is like, so he came down, so little, it was like not even blackish, it was like more whitish, like beautiful looking. Comes down, like that. And he gives it some, I'm not sure whether it's boga or whether it's prasad, but from his hand, he gives it and like that. And he speaks to it. Hare Krishna, he speaks to it, and that goes away. And when it went away, I don't know how it went and where it disappeared. It's like a very mystical thing for me. Disappeared like that. So when Mukunda Datta Prabhu was speaking, I thought maybe should I say it or not say it? Because he wants to not just feed and serve devotees prasadam. Practically he wants to feed and serve all living entities. Like I could say right here in Radharani's kitchen. Practically. But it's not something that's muchi. Don't get that idea. Because this rodent is a little special. You know, it actually is submissive. It listens. And he can speak their language practically, you know, reciprocate with them. Just like Srila Prabhupada used to say so many, all living entities, not only human beings, all living entities in Braj Mandala, Bridge Passes, all living entities. Like that. So that reminded me of something in relation to Srila Prabhupada's father, Gaur Mohan De. He used to do the same thing in his shop. Gaur Mohan De had a cloth shop. And during the day, you know, these sort of friendly rodents, we call them, do not bother Gaur Mohan De. But in the evening before he closes, he leaves some rice and some grains. And Vibhu Chaitanya had many associates, including them. Very exalted. We only see human beings, he sees all living entities. His Grace Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nanta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Thank you, Maharaj. Did one of the big here? I saw her earlier. Nadi Bhakti. His Grace Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu ki jai. So he was the example of extremely dedicated, as we heard, very serious to do his service for Srila Prabhupada, cooking for the deities. When I was here from 93 to 2000, very active with Charnamrita. And so we're glorifying devotees and Vaishnavas. Lord Shiva was asked, what's the best worship? It's the worship of Lord Vishnu. But even better than serving Lord Vishnu is serving the devotees of Lord Vishnu. When Yudhishthira Maharaj was having his Rajasuya sacrifice, he engaged everybody, Bhima, Arjuna, doing different things. Krishna was in charge of washing all the guests' feet. So Krishna sets the example, how you can think the Supreme Lord is going to wash all the guests' feet. Narada Muni went to visit Krishna immediately got up and showed great respect. So this is honoring a devotee. The 6 Goswamis, the beautiful songs are there by the Vaishnavas that one who serves the devotees, I take the dust of their feet. And so Vibhu Chaitanya exemplified a very dedicated, very serious servant of the Lord, and the Lord notices that. So we're all remembering today his transcendental qualities of being very dedicated, very serious in his bhakti, in his service, and very meticulous. And just as Krishna, he's showing by his example, even though the greatest personality, he became the servant of everyone. Although Vibhu Chaitanya, he said a senior man, was still showing all respects to other Vaishnavas. So we can learn by that example, and by the whole Bhagavatam is glorifying the devotees, glorifying Krishna. So we're trying to follow in the footsteps of Srimad Bhagavatam by glorifying Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu for his excellent service and dedication today. There's a program this afternoon? Yes, his was one of the first samadhis, wasn't it? Was it the very first? At the Goshala we have our samadhi row. Many exalted personalities are there. So at 12:30, there will be a ceremony for Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu at the Goshala, some kirtan, maybe even a little more talk. Anyone else want to say anything? Maharaj, please come. Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu ki.
Amagyanatimidandasya Gyanam Gyanashalakaya Chakshur Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. One of the stories that I've heard is that because in those days, in the early days of our temple, they used to cook, not with oven or kerosene. They will cook with coal, black coal. And Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, as we've heard, he would be cooking all day long, practically, right from the early in the morning till evening. And he would be singing bhajans, songs of the Vaishnavas, just like the Brajabasis, like Mother Yasoda, the elderly cowherd maidens of Vrindavan. They will also compose songs and they will sing while they were doing their household chores. So Prabhupada was walking and he heard Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu chanting, singing Vaishnava songs. And Prabhupada asked, who is that singing? Because very sweet voice. And the devotee who is with Prabhupada, he says that, oh, this is our Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. He would chant and he would prepare practically the offerings during the day. Really? Prabhupada says, oh, he doesn't have to chant his rounds. He can just continue doing this service. So have you heard of anyone whom Prabhupada says that you don't have to chant your rounds? It's like Shruta Kirti Prabhu also. Prabhupada says you don't have to come for Mangalartik because his main service is to be with Prabhupada 24 hours. So similarly, Vibhu Chaitanya was fully engaged practically 24 hours. He's the first one to wake up in the Brahmachari ashram, 2:30, early in the morning. So practically he's the first one to get up and he's the last one to retire. We've heard many devotees like that in our movement, like Jayananda Prabhu. Yes, the devotee, they don't have to advertise themselves that they are great devotees. So while he's still around with us, he's so great, the whole movement knows him. And our leaders, our GBCs would come and see him personally because he's just that great. And of course, when he was doing this Charnamrita Seva, I felt whenever he would touch my hand, I would feel electrified. Like, some energy was like flowing from his transcendental hands. Like, it's not cold. Sometimes if someone touch you and cold, you'll get you go like this. But it's so much bhakti is there. And because, of course, we would chant like while he was doing his Charnamrita service. And during his last days, yes, in his room, it just doesn't look like it is an altar, an extension of Sisi Radhe Shyam, Lalita Visakha, Sisi Krishna Balaram Gaura-Nitai's altar. It doesn't look, but it feels like, because when you enter, it's so radiant. It is so effulgent. Something is there. Like our altar is like nothing compared to the whole world. So when you enter there, and one of his servants, what's his name? That devotee from Africa, South Africa. He used to be here. He was serving him also. Remember him? Or from Africa? Yeah, no, big. He's big. He used to stay in the ashram. Anyway, so he asked me, Maharaj, or not even Maharaj yet. He was telling me, Prabhu, Vibhu Chaitanya is looking for you. He said, where were you? Why are you not chanting? Because I usually, once a year, I would lose my voice. So, unfortunately, I was unable to see him because during this time of the year, I would go see my mother in the Philippines. And yes, somehow, I was not here when he left his body. So you can tell a person, a devotee, even while he's still around, he's already a great personality. And even much more after he would leave his body. So Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu is one of those great personalities. And as Srila Prabhupada says, we are kitchen religion. So we had two of our great devotees here who were doing service in Radharani's kitchen, Bhubaneswar Prabhu, and our also Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. Srila Prabhupada ke, Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu ke, Nitai Got Premanande, Hari Hari Bo, Om Tat Sat.
तो सभी भक्तों से निवेदन है कि 12:30 बजे विभु चैतन्य प्रभु के समाधि में आइए गौशाला में और वहाँ पर पुष्पांजलि और आरती होगा। हरे कृष्ण।